Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning Five here on Friday, July 28th, 2023. I am Dave Biddle, flying solo on today's show. First of all, I want to talk more about our new sponsor, Factor Meals. My family absolutely loves it, and we're going to tell you guys how you can get in on the action, get 50% off. Factor Meals is fantastic. It's high-quality food delivered right to your door, anything you can really think of, and it's ready in 2 minutes. And, steaks, chicken, pork. They have all kinds of pasta dishes, vegetarian meals, smoothies, chili, anything you can think of. So what I want you guys to do is head to factormeals.com, factormeals.com. I'm going to put up here on the banner for if you're watching on YouTube, factormeals.com/bucknuts50, factormeals.com/bucknuts50, and you can get 50% off any order. So factormeals.com/bucknuts50, use code bucknuts50 and get 50% off any order. I highly recommend it. All right, let's get down to talking about the Buckeyes and some recruiting, mostly about the Buckeyes. I'm going to get to what we learned from Big Ten Media Days. We're going to talk about Aaron Scott, of course. We already have a few questions that I'm going to get to now. Try and save most of your questions for later if you don't mind. If you want to put them in the hopper now, that's no problem as well. We already have a few before the show even started, which I love, from Larry on YouTube. Does Colorado leaving the Pac-12 open the door wider for the Big Ten to get Oregon and Washington? Well, Larry, I will say this. I mean, the Big Ten could have Oregon and Washington anytime they would want. Anytime they'd want. I mean, Oregon and Washington definitely want to come here. From what I was told, talking to some people a little bit on background at Big Ten Media Days, people not affiliated with Ohio State, just people more around the Big Ten. And it's not unanimous, but most Big Ten schools don't want to share more of the pie. They don't believe that Oregon and Washington would really move the meter much. So I would say no, but at any point, the Big Ten could change its mind and Oregon and Washington would walk here. So I also have heard like the idea that, you got to give USC and UCLA, another West Coast team so they're not on an island. That's true to an extent, but let's remember LA is not that close to Eugene, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington. I mean, it's closer than it is Columbus, Ohio, but it's still, you're still talking about, over a 2-hour plane ride from LA to Seattle. You're not just going right up the road. It's not like they're going to San Diego or something down the road. So I'm going to say no on that for now, Larry. Okay, one more question here we'll get to for now. This is from M. Colwell on YouTube. What did I think of what was said yesterday at Big Ten Media Days, that this Buckeye team is prepared to win it all and not just beat Michigan? Well, yeah, I mean, they better be, right? I mean, that's got to be the goal. The ultimate goal is to win the national championship. But I also like what Marvin Harrison Jr. said. He said, right now our goal has to be, he didn't say get back to like the basics, but I mean, get back to beating the team up north and winning the Big Ten. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. does not want to leave Ohio State with 0 gold pants and never getting to play in the stadium that his father started. I mean, his father also played at the previous stadium, but has his father hanging up there in the rafters, his name. And Marvin Jr. was there when his dad was put in the Colts Ring of Honor. So, they are focused on, they're not shy about talking about the Michigan game and the last 2 years and how it's motivating them. But talk is cheap. They're saying we have to prove it. And, we'll see. That game can't get here fast enough, in my opinion. So there you go with that. One more from him. Do I think they'll have one loss? I could see that because this is such a difficult schedule. There's 4 games that, really stand out: at Notre Dame, Penn State, at Wisconsin, which are back-to-back weeks, by the way. Wisconsin's going to be a night game, and they're going to be good. So, and then at Michigan. And there's others that could be a problem, like Maryland, although Ohio State usually smokes them when they come to – let me rephrase that. Ohio State always smokes them when they come to Columbus. College Park, there's been a couple of tight ones. I could see Ohio State having a loss, still winning the Big Ten. In fact, I've said that before. That's my prediction for this year. I think Ohio State's going to be 12-1, Big Ten champ, and be in the college football playoff. I don't know what the loss is going to be, but I think they're going to slip up once. But it's not going to be against Michigan is my prediction. I think they're going to get the job done against Michigan this year. So there you go. All right. So I want to get into some stuff that we learned from Big Ten Media Days. Somebody says, I'll get to this about Factor Meals. Do they have crawfish? They've got a bunch of seafood. They've got a little bit. I'm telling you, it's high quality. Pretty much anything you can think of, they have, and it's ready in 2 minutes. All right. There you go. Factor Meals, another shout out to them. So we seriously love it here at the house. All right. So biggest thing, let's start with quarterbacks. That's obviously was going to be the big thing. He was not going to name a quarterback. I love my buddy Tim May, who's been on the beat longer than anybody else, asking him the very first question was, Ryan, who's your backup quarterback going to be? That was such a unique way of asking because we all know he's not going to name the starter. Now, Ryan knows himself, I have no doubt, and I'm pretty sure that's Kyle McCord. But he says he's going to probably announce, he wants to announce a couple weeks into camp. He said, now someone has to emerge. I'm not just going to announce a starting quarterback to announce one because it's midway through camp, but that's what they've always done. But he admitted it's different this time around. I mean, even though he didn't announce it till a couple weeks into camp, we all knew Justin Fields was going to be the starter in 19. He was going against Gunnar Hoke and Chugs. I mean, even though they painted that as it was a competition going into camp, it wasn't. And they basically admitted, even though he said it was a competition going into the 2021 season with CJ and Jack Miller and even true freshman Kyle McCord, it really wasn't. He knew all along CJ was his quarterback. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. So again, I think that's also important to point out. He always says it's a competition. And even now he's kind of admitting it really wasn't the last two times. But then, he said this one is close. He said this one's different. This one is close. I still think Kyle McCord's going to beat out Devin Brown, but I did find it interesting. I took Ryan because he's a football coach. He's not going to, they're going to be very, they're going to be very guarded with their words. But one thing I like about Ryan Day is he's not going to come out and say everything that's on his mind. Why would you do that? But you can read between the lines with him, I think, in a lot of cases. And I believe him when he says it's a close battle. But I also think he knows who his starter is going to be, and it's going to be Kyle McCord. So there you go on that. Offensive line. Of course, I'm the football nerd. People want to ask about cool questions like, conference expansion and all this other good stuff, quarterbacks, and I want to know about the offensive line. So, but seriously, we've talked about it throughout the offseason. It's got to be the biggest concern. I mean, quarterback, I guess you could say it's a concern. I don't think it is. I think whoever wins that job is going to have a really good year. But offensive line, we'll see what happens. Losing 3 NFL draft picks off the line last year, 3 new starters, breaking in a new starting center. We'll see how that goes. At least they've got both guards back. And Ryan Day said, a lot of guys are in the mix. I found it interesting. I'm sure this jumped out to a lot of you as well. He threw out Luke Montgomery when I asked him about the offensive line and kind of how he feels about it. I did not expect him to throw that. Now, I don't think Luke Montgomery is going to start as a true freshman. But just the fact that he was named, and again, when a coach is naming guys off the top of his head, he's going to probably leave somebody out. I did notice he left Zen Mahalski out. I don't know if I'd looked too much into that because I was told they like Zen. But he did mention Tegra Shabola. That kid, if they can get him, I mean, he looks like exactly what you'd want from like a right tackle or maybe even a guard. 6'6", 330, moves well for that size. Just looks like a Hulk out there. Only a redshirt freshman, so Tegra's got a lot of upside. Sounds like Josh Fryer is definitely going to be the left tackle. I mean, Brian Day didn't go that far, but that was the first name out of his mouth as they feel good about Josh Fryer at tackle. No surprise there. And I imagine Carson Hinsman will be the starting center. They said he was one of the bright spots of spring. Now he'll be, Vic Cutler didn't come here to just sit on the bench, so he's going to battle there, also battle at the guard spots. At least have some, he knows he's not going to start at guard, but at least be ready as a backup in case one of those guys gets injured. Enoch Vamahi will be another backup guard. You have Jacob James will be in the mix at center, along with Vic Cutler, probably backing up Carson Hinsman. So we'll see. If they can be good on the offensive line, Ohio State's going to be a massive, massive problem this year for their opponents. All right. Fire away with any questions you guys might have. All right. So Aaron Scott, Sunday, finally going to happen, right? Probably. Would it shock any of us if he said, I'm actually going to push it back a little bit? No, I'm kidding. I think he actually does want to get it over with before his senior season starts. And he's had fun with the process, but it's his dad's birthday on Sunday. So I'm sticking with my guns. I think he's going to be a Buckeye. I think he's been having fun with the process. And I'm not going to call it trolling. He's a 17-year-old kid. He's having fun. He's just having fun. So once in a lifetime experience, have some fun, young man. And I think he's going to be a Buckeye. Keep it locked to Bucknuts. We shall find out. I don't know. We'll see. And I'm a lot of times we'll know in advance, not that we're going to tell you this, but so I could be lying right now that we do know, but a lot of times we'll know in advance, but we can't say anything. And we don't know in advance this time. We were not given a heads up like, hey, you can't say anything, but he's, this is what's happening. Not this time. So keeping it close to the vest, having fun with it, but I think he's going to be a Buckeye. Bam. So there you go. All right, let's get to some of this. Some of your cues in the queue. Okay. Kojo Antwi question. Christopher on YouTube. How's Kojo Antwi doing? Is he more or less likely to transfer next spring? He seems happy because they didn't even redshirt him last year. He played all over special teams. And I do think, I don't know if help is the right word. I think the fact that Caleb Brown and Caleb Burton transferred kind of helps Antwi and Keon Grays, the other two members from that 2022 recruiting class. I don't think they want to have all four of those guys transfer. And Caleb Brown's the one I think that had a chance of playing here. Caleb Burton, I don't think probably had that much of a chance. That's how kid was at like a high 4-star. At one point, he was like a 5-star and then dropped to a 4-star. And I'm saying he couldn't play here. Nothing against that kid. He's probably going to do well at Auburn, but just Ohio State's so freaking loaded at wide receiver. It's ridiculous. Go back to 2 years ago, Marvin Harrison Jr. couldn't even see the field to the Rose Bowl because they were so stacked. Probably the same thing's going to happen this year with Carnell Tate, Noah Rogers, and those guys, and Brandon Ennis. They're just so damn good. Who are you going to take off the field for those guys? As Brian Hartline says all the time, if I take Marvin Harrison Jr. off the field for you, you need to be at least as good as Marvin Harrison Jr. Well, good luck with that. If I take Emeka Egbuka off the field for you, you need to be as good as Emeka. Good luck with that. So those guys will be future studs, just like Marvin and Emeka are right now. But I don't think Hartline's going to change his spots, man. If you're in change his stripes, I think if you're in that top 4, you're set. If you're not, yeah, you probably are only playing during fourth quarter of blowouts, most likely. They'll sprinkle those guys in, though, I think, when the game's on the line. Sprinkle them in here and there. But if hopefully Marvin and Emeka stay healthy, I don't think we're going to see very much of the true freshman when the game is on the line. They might sprinkle them in here and there. Maybe I'll be wrong, and this is the year they'll use like a deep rotation receiver. But when you've got perhaps the 2 best wide receivers in college football, definitely the best. And if there's somebody better than Emeka other than Marvin, I'd love to see them. You have probably the 2 best receivers in college football. I want to see those guys out there as much as possible. And you got Julian Fleming, you got Xavier Johnson, you got Jaden Ballard. So I don't think Kojo Antwi is going to transfer after this year. We'll see. He just seems like he's happy to be at Ohio State. That can change if he goes through another year and doesn't get like any catches or not many. Then things can change. But I'll say he'll stick around for at least another year through his junior year. And then if he wants to go somewhere else as senior, maybe he'll do that. We'll see. Tom on YouTube. What does everyone think about Coach Day suggesting moving the Michigan game to earlier in the season? Yeah, I don't like that. I see what he's saying. And to be clear, in his defense, he threw it out there. He said, I think it's worth a discussion. And then he made it crystal clear. I want to say I am not saying it needs to be moved. He just said it's worth talking about because last year, they're getting rid of divisions, which I'm sure most of you know. Not this year, starting next year. So the Big Ten JV gets one more year of existence. And they get somebody to sneak in the Big Ten championship game one more time. But last year, if they didn't have divisions, what would have happened? Back-to-back Ohio State-Michigan games. That was Coach Day's point. Me, I saw that. I'm like, no. And I knew as soon as he came out of his mouth, even though he clarified it, I knew people were going to jump. Buckeye fans were not going to like to hear that because I'm the same way. I heard that. I'm like, no. That's our Super Bowl every year. It's one thing that we love on both sides of the rivalry. You're going to get our version of the Super Bowl every year, the last game of the regular season. If they happen to be the best 2 teams, it's not going to happen every year. And so be it. Then there'll be a rematch the next week and both teams will get in the playoffs anyway because they're going to be 12 teams in the playoffs. So maybe they'll play 3 times. That's what you get when you keep adding. I like the 4 teams, but now Ohio State can finish 9-3 most years and still get in the playoffs. 10-2 is a lock. So I understood where he's coming from, but I want to see the game stay where it's at. We already have too much other crap that's changing. And I'm not a guy that's like, we do it this way because we've always done it that way. That's not good logic. You should look at it. If we're starting from scratch, how would we do it? But certain things like the Ohio State-Michigan game, man, it's just special the way it is. There's no reason to change it, in my opinion. Just out of the chance there could be a rematch the following week. Okay, I mean, there'd be a rematch anyway. If you're talking about playing in the middle, your reason for changing is to play in the middle of the season. Yeah, it'd be a rematch the following week, but okay. We see it in the NFL all the time, not necessarily the next week, but you play your teams in your division twice. We'll get used to it quickly, and it's not going to happen every year anyway. So we'll see what happens. Chad on YouTube. He says, Dave, I was struck by how relaxed the guy seemed. Ryan Day really seems to have hit his stride. Do you get the same vibe? Yes, sir, I do. I felt the exact same way. And it's it's not like relaxed, like we got it made in the shade. It's like a quiet confidence and some self-awareness where they know, listen, we can't do what we did the last, I know last year we came within this, whatever. They know it's unacceptable in Columbus, Ohio. And I appreciate that while still having that quiet confidence, almost like they know something, like something's coming this year. But frankly, I felt the same way last year. I thought the Michigan game was a one-year aberration. Michigan had to come to Columbus. And I'm like, look, all year I was saying, Michigan's going to be in trouble having to come to Columbus. And look what happened. So they got to prove it. But I agree with you. I completely agree with you. Isaiah on YouTube. Do you sense a different type of energy from Ryan Day that has trickled down to the team? I don't know. I mean, I've always liked his energy. I just thought in the Michigan game last year, he coached tight, and he pretty much admitted that because he said once they got that second life going into the Georgia game, what did Ryan Day say? He said, we're never, ever again going to play tight. We're going to play loose. We're going to play aggressive. We're not going to play tight. He wouldn't have said that unless he meant translation. We puckered up against Michigan. We played tight because they did. They felt the pressure and they played tight. And then once Michigan got some momentum going, then it snowballed. Early on in that game, Ohio State looked like the better team. They couldn't do anything. Michigan's offense couldn't do anything until that little pass on third down, Cornelius Johnson, I believe, and then Cam Brown whiffs on a tackle. Jack Sawyer's late getting there. Boom, they have momentum. So we'll see what happens. But I think they're a confident bunch, but they're not getting over their skis by any means. They know they've fallen short the last 2 years, even though they came within what I consider an inch of winning the national championship last year. Not an inch. Obviously, the kick didn't miss by an inch. But you know what I mean, though. Very close to winning the national championship. They would have beat TCU, in my opinion. Of course, Michigan thought they were going to beat TCU too, so who knows. David on YouTube. When is the last time I have seen the Big Ten this strong? I don't think I have. I mean, Penn State, this is probably the best Penn State roster that I can remember. Oh, I almost said since 94. I won't give them that, but by the way, Penn State got screwed in 1994. They should have been they should have shared the national championship. It's ridiculous they didn't. It's ridiculous. They finished undefeated, Big Ten champs, blew out Ohio State, and they finished number 2 because they had a somewhat close game against Indiana, which really wasn't close. They also had a really good team, I believe, in 99. Was that the LeVar Arrington year? So this is Penn State's best team since at least then, in my opinion, as far as like talent. But James Franklin as a game coach, it gives me some trepidation if I was going to pick Penn State. And then you have Michigan and Ohio State. Boom, boom. Everybody has them, clearly in the top 4. And Vegas has Ohio State ahead of Michigan. If you look at the betting odds, Ohio State's actually the favorite to win the Big Ten. Ohio State has the better odds to win the national championship compared to Michigan. If you look at all the human polls there, everybody's picking Michigan over Ohio State. We're all, at least mostly, I would believe, we might have some fans from other teams here. We're all Buckeyes here, so we're like, come on, that's. But it makes sense if you're like, you take the Buckeye hat off. Michigan's beat them the last 2 years. The game's in Ann Arbor. Michigan's got a ton of returning starters. Michigan's not breaking in a new quarterback. Ohio State is. So you understand it from the outside, but I'm pretty confident. We'll see. But yeah, the Big Ten strong as heck, man. And then you look at Wisconsin is going to be good because obviously one of the things that's held them down since they had the 1 year with Russell Wilson is quarterback play. Now they have Tanner Mordecai in there, and they bring in a guy, from North Carolina that's going to open it up, but still run the ball. There was 1 year at North Carolina when he was there, they had 2 1,000-yard running backs. So they're still going to be able to run the ball. I mean, Allen is one of the best running backs in the Big Ten, one of the best running backs in the country entering his junior year. They're going to have good offensive linemen. Now they have a quarterback that can throw it. Luke Fickell is going to be an upgrade over Paul Chryst. I'm not ready to say Luke Fickell is the next, amazing head coach in college football. I think he's very good. What he did at Cincinnati cannot be ignored. He had a 4-8 season his first year, and then the next 5 years, there's something like 50-12 or something like that, like combined, maybe better than that. His final 5 years at Cincinnati, I mean, hats off to Luke, and I'm happy for him. But it's weird that he's at Wisconsin. But Wisconsin's going to be good. Some people think Iowa's going to be good this year. They have Cade McNamara now. We'll see. But I'm sure their defense will be good, and their offensive line will be good, and their tight ends will be good. So, you look at Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. I mean, Maryland's going to be sneaky good with Tagovailoa back and, some of the athletes they have, although Mike Locksley as a head coach, not seeing it. And we'll see if anybody else can jump up from the West. But you look at that top 5 really, or the top 4 of Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, and then Wisconsin. That's formidable, especially the 3 from the East. And thank goodness they're finally getting rid of divisions. Next year. Okay. From Facebook in the house. Bill on Facebook. What does our punter and field goal kickers look like this year? Jesse Mirko's back for his 3rd year as the punter, the young man from Australia. And I thought he definitely got better. He wasn't bad as a true freshman, but it was his first time ever playing American football. I thought he got markedly better last year, and I expect him to have a big year this year. Field goal to be determined. It's a competition between USC transfer Parker Lewis, actually transferred last year but sat out. He's got 2 years of eligibility left. And then Jaden Fielding, who was the kickoff specialist last year. He's got 3 years of eligibility left because counted as a year of eligibility last year as a true freshman. Those guys will battle it out. My guess is Fielding will still be the kickoff guy. And I'm guessing if I had to pick, I'll say Parker Lewis, but I think it's going to be close. We'll see what happens. Mika on YouTube. What about G. Scott Jr.? Yeah, I think G is right there. I mean, he's solid, at the very worst, the number 3 tight end. I mean, Jelani Thurman is a future star, but I think it's going to be hard for him to play a lot as a true freshman. I mean, he's a big dude, but, is he ready to be the blocker that they need him to be? G continues to get bigger, and they like where he's at. They feel like he's, done everything they've asked, and it's impressive to me that he hasn't transferred, and has Cade Stover as the starter. And I'm hearing Joe Royer is the solid number 2. I mean, G's going to push him. I'm hearing Joe Royer is going to be the number 2. When they go 12 personnel, you're going to see Cade Stover and Joe Royer out there a lot. But they will play 3 tight ends. We've seen it. Not always together. In fact, very, very rarely have 3 tight ends together on the field. But they'll use a total of 3 tight ends. So G will run in there with some 12 personnel and be that second tight end at times. So, and if somebody gets hurt, then he's in the 2 deep. And maybe he'll get in the 2 deep anyways. All right. Kind of wrapping it up. Man, there's a lot of questions in here. I'm sorry if I'm going over a few of them here. Rob on Facebook. Do I think the possibility of Larry Johnson retiring is hurting defensive end recruiting? I don't know. It maybe, but maybe Larry's telling these guys he's going to be there because every time he's asked about it, he's like, I've never said anything about recruiting, or he's never said anything about recruiting. He's never said anything about retiring. He says, I feel young. I feel good. I still want to do this. So we'll see. I see what you're saying, though. I mean, I wouldn't write it off. Certainly wouldn't write it off. Another one from Josh on Facebook. Who will be running back 1? I'll go with Travion Henderson, but man, I've said it's close. I mean, I like all 5 of these guys. I put Pryor 5th just because he's coming off that torn patellar tendon, but I still like him. And if he's healthy, that's great news. In fact, that's another thing I want to talk about. I think Ryan Day's talking about the health of this team was really good news at Big Ten Media Day. He said, they got a couple of things that your heart really goes out. Avery Henry having to retire from football, and Zach Herbstreit's got a long way back from his health scare. But as far as other than Avery Henry, as far as the scholarship guys, and certainly as far as any of the frontline guys, they're going into the season healthy, going to the camp healthy, according to Ryan Day. And that would include guys like, unless he wasn't being forthcoming, that would include guys like Evan Pryor, Court Williams, guys that have, Mitchell Melton. Mitchell Melton was out there throughout spring. A guy that can add some depth at D end. All those guys are healthy, so that's great news. But I'll go with Travion. But man, I like Trey. I like Mayan. I like Dallin Hayden a lot. Now he's bigger. He was good as a true freshman. Reasonable to assume he'll be better as a junior. So, yeah, and I like Chip. I thought Chip Trayanum looked really good in the spring. Not like, he could probably get the job done. I thought he looked really good. Tough, hard to tackle, and then has wheels. Really good wheels for a 230-pound back. So, yeah, I mean, we have people saying, Rob on Facebook, I'd take any of the 5 backs as running back 1. That's how let's just hope they stay healthy. That was the thing last year, man. I'm confident any of those guys can get the job done as well. So, Eric on just Brandon Baker. I think he wants to know what's going to happen with Brandon Baker. I don't know that. I feel like Justin Fry, that would just be huge for him because the guys he's gotten have been like local guys. out of state, he got Ian Moore, who's a good get, but Justin Fry's from Indiana, played at Indiana, and Ohio State's recruited the state of Indiana well anyway. It's a bordering state, obviously. Him landing not just the number one offensive tackle in the country, but going all the way to California to do it, that would be a huge feather in his cap. And that would be the perfect way to finish off this O-line class. I think that, you got 4 in it already, and guys that, again, I don't think Fry's going to get a ton of credit for landing those guys because they were all local, but a good group of 4 that now can be a stellar group of 5 if they get Brandon Baker. I don't know. It's between Ohio State and Oregon. I'm not close enough to it to make a call on it. Bill Kurlick and Steve Wiltfong, I'd defer to those guys, and I don't think they've put a crystal ball in yet. So we'll see what happens. But Aaron Scott's going to be the big one. That's this Sunday. So they've got a couple of Mika. They've got a couple of walk-on backs they like. TC Caffey's coming off that injury. Man, he looked good last year before that injury. He had one of the best seasons in Ohio high school football history his senior year of high school. And then they landed a young man from Massillon, Will Hartson, who is a true freshman this year. Another guy that had MAC offers, scholarship offers, a bunch of 1AA offers, turned him down to be a preferred walk-on at Ohio State. So, they've got 5 scholarship guys, and they've got a couple of walk-ons that can get the job done if needed. That's too bad about TC Caffey last year. How banged up they were, he probably would have been getting carries in the national championship game, basically was the national championship game against Georgia. Marvin Harrison even referred to it as the national championship game, and he didn't catch himself. He's like, I've done a lot. This is when he was talking about, I haven't played in a Big Ten championship game. He wants to get that opportunity. He's like, I've played in a national championship game. It basically was. I was waiting for him to be like, well, it's a semifinal. He's like, I played in the Rose Bowl. I played in the national championship game, but I haven't played in the Big Ten championship game. I thought that was funny. All right. Appreciate you guys riding with me on this solo edition of the Bucknuts Morning 5. Again, head to factormeals.com/Bucknuts50. Use code Bucknuts50 to get 50% off any order. Factormeals.com/Bucknuts50. Use code Bucknuts50 to get 50% off any order. Highly recommend it. Great stuff. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for all the comments and the questions. Hope everyone has a great day and a great weekend.